Welcome to Tell Us Something for Real. Thank you so much for coming. You are Tell Us Something. Without you, Tell Us Something can't happen. Your stories matter. Your stories are just as storytellers to share stories with you tonight. Storytellers have 10 minutes to tell a true story from memory on a theme. Tonight's theme is bad advice. Okay. Our first storyteller. Big thanks to the bookstore at the University of Montana. They provided swag bags for all the storytellers, and they've been our sponsor since the beginning. So give it up for the bookstore at the University of Montana. How many have never been to Tell Us Something? How many of you are here because you heard an ad on the trail? A little bit? Well, the trail is now a sponsor of Tell Us Something, so if you're not listening to them, you should be. They're great. They're all local DJs who love Missoula and know their music. 103.3 The Trail. Born and raised just outside of Missoula, 25-year-old Rachel Dierken gets her pulse checked on airplanes by flight attendants because she sleeps so hard. She once got her foot stuck in a trombone, in the slide of a trombone, and she loves to read, travel, and spend time with family and friends. You won't be hearing the trombone story tonight, but she thought you should know and hopes you enjoy what's about to happen. Please welcome Rachel Dierken.
Is that good? Sure. When I was 21, I studied abroad in Tartu, Estonia. I think this is moving down real fast. I don't know. Some bad advice, tell a story. Mike's gonna listen. Thank you. All right, here we go. So, when I was 21, I studied abroad in Tartu, Estonia, in northeastern Europe, and I made a friend, Brian, from Baltimore. And our friendship was really a rivalry about who was the most badass, him being from Baltimore, me being from Montana, obviously superior. And we decided we wanted to go to Amsterdam. We were in Europe, and when we were going to go again. So we decided I would do the flights, he would do the housing. I booked some kick-ass tickets, and a friend recommended we should couch surf. And I have couch surfed, and it was a very positive experience. Brian never had, but was on board. And he messaged a few people on couchsurfing, and we heard back from 35-year-old British mailman Simon, who had 2 couches for us at the end of November when we were planning to go. So, all right, let's do it. Amsterdam or bust. So we go to Amsterdam, we get there, and we take our bus all the way out to the outskirts of town as instructed. And, you know, there's some construction sites and it's an industrial area, but there are some apartment complexes. So off we go to find Simon. We go into the first apartment and we don't see his name on the address. Okay, it's fine. We go to the next one. After about an hour, we can't find his name on any of the apartments. So we're a little nervous, but we're fine, you know, we're cool, we can handle this. And we find a public phone and give him a call. Hey man, we're at the bus stop. How do we get to your place? And he tells us, oh, you have to go through the industrial part, the construction site. Okay, off we go. We walked for about 5 or 7 minutes through warehouses, and we see this empty, dilapidated warehouse with the address on it. And a little nervous, and out walks this guy with a mohawk and tattoos, and he's got piercings, like really punk. Not your Brit sipping tea, it's Simon, the 35-year-old British mailman. So while I'm taking in this abandoned warehouse and this strange person walking towards me, I have this internal monologue. My father watched Taken, the movie with Liam Neeson, the week before I flew. For those of you who don't know, it's a movie where his daughter goes to Europe alone and is kidnapped. And I'm going, oh shit, my dad's an elementary school principal and does not have the special set of skills that I'm gonna need if this happens. But I look to my right and Brian is there, and there's no way he's gonna see me flinch, so we follow Simon into this warehouse. Turns out they're squatting. It's just empty warehouse in Amsterdam. It doesn't have electricity, there's no plumbing, no heat, but what they make up for, or what they don't make up for in electricities, they make up for in other couch surfers. There were at least 7 other people there that had all been accepted by Simon. So, okay. To be polite, we all, go around and introduce ourselves, and there's this one girl, she's like, oh, I'm from Idaho. I get super excited, go to shake her hand, and she stands up and just fairy wings. And I was like, not quite the support I was hoping for in this environment. Okay, we're fine. And so it is Amsterdam, and everyone's passing around a couple joints. So Brian and I are like, yeah, this will calm us down, relax us, let's do it. So we're smoking a couple joints, and I don't know anything about weed, but I know it's not supposed to be really sweet. And so after a couple times, it's kind of like, this is really sweet, what's going on here? And one of the random couch surfers goes, oh yeah, we put some mushroom honey in that. To which, excuse me, you did what now? This is exactly where I want to be, a squatter's house in Amsterdam with mushrooms. Totally normal, okay. I'm fine. This is gonna be okay. And then the girl from Idaho suggested we go out to a concert of a band, Portugal the Man, who I actually really like. They're from Portland, they're familiar. I'm like, let's get out of this environment, go to one I might react to a little better. We walked for about an hour, and we get to this venue that's this old church that they've repurposed into a music venue, and it's a really cool scene. But they kept the stained glass windows, and I don't know if this was the building or the drugs, but there was some weird demonic imagery that didn't sit too well with me. But the show was really wonderful, and it calmed us down, we were able to enjoy whatever happened. And then it was time to go back to our home, abode, I don't know what to call it. We went back, and Simon, who had not, he didn't come to the show with us, decided that Brian and I should have our own little space, which was fine, except because there was no heating, we were further from the water heater that they had cut a hole in and put wood to burn, and had about maybe 10 feet of warmth, so that was a little disappointing, but, we didn't need to be with everybody else. So into our little closet-sized room we went. And this room, there were 2 windows. There was no glass. It was just the plastic construction sheeting kind of covering it up. And again, we're at the end of November. In Amsterdam, as far as longitude, it's between Calgary and Edmonton, so it's really cold. But the windows are not there. There is a bare mattress on the floor and a small little table, because no electricity, they had candles, in a pentagram. So, at this point, I'm convinced I'm going to be sacrificed. But can't let Brian see me sweat. Everything's cool. So I ask him, hey Brian, which side do you want? And he says, I want this side closer to the wall. You can sleep by the windows. So as I'm putting my coat and my hat and scarf and gloves on, muttering, chivalry is dead, you asshole, I curl up, and there's this big lumpy pink blanket with like David Bowie lightning bolts on it. Like, I don't know, but it's all we had, so we were gonna make do. And Brian went to go take out his contacts in some reflective service. And he found the bathroom. I don't know what the plumbing situation looked like, but they did have a sink, which was a mannequin's leg and a bowl on top. No questions. So Brian came back and he put on all of his, warm stuff and crawled in next to me and just goes, "Oh, ew, there's something here." Yep. So I grab a candle because there's no light. And I pull back our blanket. There's a huge pile of nasty vomit. Just chilling right there. Yeah, and we're both just like, oh my God. I'm secretly thinking, karma's a bitch, you sleep in the vomit, I'll take the cold window. We're fine. So we grab a little towel and wipe it off and put it down, and he sleeps on top of the towel. We actually went to sleep and woke up alive. No sacrifices took place, but we were broken, and we made eye contact, and we're just like, I can't, man, this was the worst thing I've ever done. I can't do it again. It was mutual defeat, so it was okay. Luckily, there was a guy who went to my university that I met one time, but he was studying abroad in Amsterdam. Public library Facebooked him, "Hey man, can I sleep on your floor? Because I slept in vomit in a squatter's house last night." And luckily he was very generous and accepted, but because it was the Thanksgiving weekend, his dad and 2 other friends were there. So 6 of us wedged into a 1-room apartment. But now whenever I hear someone say, "I'm going to Amsterdam," I like to say, "Oh, I've been to Amsterdam. Might I recommend a hostel?" Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Sorry about the mic fail. Sean Hawkings first came to Montana as a ski bum. He was a lift operations specialist. He took much pride in drinking PBR and bumping chairs at Big Mountain. Once the snow melted, he ended up with his hands in the dirt at Purple Frog Gardens. There, he learned some of his most important life lessons, like how to talk and work at the same time, make homemade beer, grow garlic, slaughter chickens, and process 400 pounds of food a week. He's not scared of bad advice or skiing a pond skim competition naked. Please welcome Sean Hawkings.
Yeah, a little higher maybe. This isn't gonna droop on me, is it? I think that's good. That works. I just got done with a 100-mile bike ride, overnight trip with my girlfriend, Beverly. I'm sitting in a hammock. I'm drinking wine. I'm eating cheese. I'm at Purple Frog Gardens. I'm listening to the 750 chickens that I'm going to have to close tonight and open in the morning, and realized we had a great weekend. I'm tired, exhausted, and I'm going to wake up with enough sleep that Monday morning will be great. I'm killing it. Usually I don't have a recovery day, but this is a recovery day. Another farmhand, Heather Ma, sees us out there and runs up and says that we're doing everything correctly, and I try to pat myself on the back, and she just gets me. And she says, "You're doing everything right, but you're doing one thing wrong." And I'm like, what is that, Heather? And she's like, you should be on the water. And I kind of look up and I look at the sky and I see where the sun is and I realize it's pretty late in the afternoon. I don't think I really want to go on a river trip on a river I've never been on this late in the day when I have to work Monday morning. But for those of you who don't know Heather, she's born in Billings. She's been to the Yak and back. She's put a kid through school, and well, you just can't beat her charm. And she told me I wouldn't even have to paddle. So we packed up the canoes and the rest of the farm hands at the farm and headed north, past Olney, heading towards Trigo, and we stopped at the Stillwater Bar. Heather, being true to her form and telling me this is going to be a relaxing event, decided that she would buy us some ranch-soaked hush puppies and some cheesy fries. I take a snort of whiskey, I put down a beer down my gullet, and I walk outside the Stillwater Bar to look at the dock out there, which is a very peculiar dock for those of you who have not been there. It has a large log on it, about 2 canoe lengths long. It sits in the water. It takes about 2 tree huggers to wrap around it. It's covered in carpet. It's fixed on 2 ends with a rod going through so it rotates. It is fun for the whole family. Some advice that I can give you is if you've never been on it, don't try to run. Then I look over at the Stillwater landing to the east where they have a brilliant stage. The owners, who are retired, love music and they love to have shows. And this stage is beautiful. Great carpentry, joinery. It has 220 power hookup. It's got 110 hookup. You could plug in 30 Marshall cabs, crank them to 11, and you're still going to have a good show. I've seen the Dirty Dozen brass band play there. My friend Vinny Ranazizi with 20 grand funk band, new wave time trippers. And it's a venue that you drive to and then park your car and they give you a wristband. You set up your tent. You go down, you listen to music. You can either go back to the bar, you can go to your tent. It's a great venue. At this point in time, I was a farmer and a college student, and my financial advisor, AKA my wallet, is pretty empty. And so I learned a little trick. And if you wait till dusk, there's a road that goes behind the Stillwater Lake. And if you have a canoe, you can canoe to that dock. You're not going to be part of the club. You're not going to get a wristband. But you can listen to free music. Well, I decided I was done staring at the bar and the landing and the dock, and we decided we had to get this trip on the road. So we all pack up and we go to where we're going to take out to drop off the vehicle. We get there, we do the drop off, the shuttle rig, we put the keys in the gas cap, and there's this couple sitting underneath the bridge named Dirk and Sally. They're sitting in this brilliant weaved Kmart special lowrider chair underneath the bridge with their feet in the sand, an ugly stick mounted between the two of them with a line in the water and a bobber. Sally, she was really intent at staring at that bobber, but Dirk was the social one. So he came up to us, and he was smart, clever. He could tell that we were not putting in there, but we were going to take out there, and asked us, where are you guys putting in? And we said, oh, up at the landing. And he goes, really? And he takes out a piece of paper, writes a little chicken scratch on it, and hands it to our friend Jojo. Jojo puts it in his pocket. And he says, I'm going to give you my goddamn phone number, and if you guys see some suckerfish, you better call me, because I like to put them in my garden to help with the corn. I'm thinking to myself, what's a suckerfish? But I didn't want him to know that I didn't know, so I was just like, will do. We jump in the car, we take off, we're heading down the road, and I get this tug on my shirt from my girlfriend Bev, and she goes, Sean, what's a suckerfish? And I was like, I don't really know. I think they're in the river. Well, what happens, like, how do we know we're going to see them? And I was like, oh, it'll become apparent. And so we decided that was the end of that conversation. We get to the landing, We put the boats in the water. We have a canoe with me and Bev and my yellow dog named Yellow Dog. I have my other friends in another stillwater boat. It's a two-person breakdown canvas kayak. Very not made for any whitewater. And we had one whitewater boat with Joel in it, but we made it a stillwater boat instantly when we forgot the skirt for it. We're wearing flip-flops, Crocs, the attire that I did not need to paddle. And we started heading down the lake to the outlet, which becomes the beginning of the Stillwater River. And we hear in the distance this lady, and she's on her dock, because she has a house right there at the outlet, and we hear, "You're not going to make it very far." At this point, we're having type 1 fun, and I am committed, and I was originally from New Hampshire, and my state motto is live free or die, so I respond with, "Thank you." We continue downriver. We get to the first portage, the second portage, the third portage. We're starting to hit type 2 fun. And then we realize the river makes this huge oxbow bend. And we end up 6 miles from the shore. We're at the point where we could hike back the shore, but we're in Crocs. And we don't want to bushwhack that far, so we keep portaging. We hit this strainer. This is where the type 3 fun comes in. Joel loses one of his flip-flops. Everyone makes it over the strainer but our boat. I'm in the canoe with just Yellow Dog in it. And my friend goes to pull the boat in. Water goes over the gunwale. The boat flips over. I'm looking at the bottom of the strainer, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not drinking wine or eating cheese. And I figured this is my way out. I found a hole. I'm going to swim through it, and suddenly I stop moving. And I'm like, this is where I die. Because when you're in a strainer and you're not moving, that means you're stuck. But luckily, it was my friend Leaf, with his brute strength, somehow pulled me out of the water. I look at him. We kind of have this bro moment. We don't need to talk to each other. We just know Yellow Dog's still in the boat. That's upside down. So we flip that over. Miraculously, Yellow Dog jumps out of the boat and just starts doing Daytona laps on the island, just high on life. It was an uplifting moment for the group. And then I don't know if any of you guys have gone morel mushroom picking. But when you're looking for morels and you find that one, and then they kind of come out of the woodwork, and you find more? Well, that just happened, but it wasn't morels. I just realized we've been hiking in poison ivy for at least 4 hours. Right now, at this point, it's pushing midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Type 3 fun is not fun. Joel I told him the best thing he can do is wrap his foot with his shirt, since he only has one flip-flop on, and we're going to have to continue the portage. Some of us have decided to cover ourselves in mud, hoping that would extract the poison ivy out of our skin. We're not having fun. We're not talking. Sometimes we look over at Heather, all of us. Heather looks down. We look down. And Joel just starts laughing hysterically. And we're like, Joel, what is so funny? And he pulls this little piece of paper out of his pocket. And he reads the phone number and goes, I get it. And we're like, you get what? Well, we're the suckers. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Angela Miller is a 30-something Seattle-born Montana transplant. She is the mother of 2 wonderful boys, affectionately known as the A-Team, and 1 zany Labrador. She's passionate about cancer awareness, autism awareness, coffee and cookies, preferably with walnuts. Angela recently returned to school full-time to try to figure out what she wants to do when she grows up. Please welcome Angela Miller.
Yeah, well, if end up needing microphone Viagra. This will work out well. So I didn't really have any introductory material when I came out here, but I do now. This afternoon I lost my keys on the way here, which was going to make for a very long walk home. So pro tip, before you stand in front of a theater full of however many people there are out here, don't lose your keys. But that's not really why I came out here. I am actually relief batting for my husband. My husband Clint was supposed to be here tonight. He couldn't make it. So if you are tweeting this, hashtag We Love Clint, and give him a little bit of shit, because he was the one who was supposed to be here. But something about marriage vows and being relief batters puts me here. So here I am, relief batting for Clint. So let me tell you a little bit about Clint. Clint is crazy about Twitter, and I never really got on the Twitter hook thing. He kind of poked me in the side, you got to get a Twitter account. I said, oh, no, I don't. I've lived my whole life without this. Why do I need this? But he's way into it. He's got 2,781 followers, which I'm not really good at math, but that's way more people than there are in this room tonight. So when you have that many people on social media and something maybe goes a little awry, and that's tweeted to 2,781 people, it breaks the internet. Now, maybe one Twitter account doesn't break the internet, but it does put a pretty significant ripple in it. So this is one part social media and one part about our lives for the last couple months. And it's funny, it's not funny, and there's some bad advice in there. So a few months ago, Clint starts coughing, just this horrendous, awful, nagging cough. And being the supportive wife that I am, I said, if you don't fucking go to the doctor, I'm gonna kill you because I can't wake up another night to you coughing. So, after my very persuasive argument for him to go to the doctor, he does, and he leaves with his token prescription for antibiotics, because I think if you show up with a cough and you have a temperature roughly in the 90s, you get a prescription for antibiotics. It's just kind of the thing. And he takes his antibiotics. They tell him he's going to be fine. Here you go. This goes on for about 6 months, in and out, new antibiotics, more coughing, more threats of murder, me contemplating if orange really is my color. Do I want to serve a life sentence for stabbing my husband in his sleep for coughing? And the answer is obviously not. Purple is kind of more my color. So this goes on for months, and finally we have a little lover's quarrel. Some people call it a fight. I call it a lover's quarrel. And he goes to the doctor, and she says, maybe we should do some imaging, because as it turns out, those antibiotics didn't really do anything for you at all. And that's exactly what happens. So he goes to the doctor, or the emergency room. Well, take your pick. There's some doctors there, so I guess that qualifies. And after 6 or 7 rousing hours of blowing up latex gloves, trying to find all sorts of great ways to amuse yourself in the emergency room, of which there are about 1, and that's blowing up gloves. They did some imaging on him, and it was not good. It was the kind of not good where the radiologist takes one look at the image and just goes, fuck. And as it turned out, Clint had cancer. So clearly, we have now entered the upper level of, maybe antibiotics isn't going to do the trick. I mean, the guy could have been taking Altoids for really all the good it was doing him. And as it turns out, Altoids have far better side effects, like good breath. So life gets a little complicated at this point. And they admit Clint, and they schedule him for surgery, because as it turns out, this cancer came from his balls. This is the Lance Armstrong cancer. Oh, ball jokes galore. Lefties trying to kill me. I I've got one ball, you know, like those Uniball pens. I'm their new spokesman. And I'm like, oh, this is great. We've got tumor humor. Dun-dun-dun. So find humor whenever you can. So anyway, so that's how this cancer journey started for our family. On the bad advice of, just take antibiotics and you'll be okay. Nope. There's some truth to that if you don't have cancer. So we're crying, we're laughing, we've got tumor jokes, we're getting all the platitudes that, you're going to beat this. So about the time Clint gets whisked off into surgery, and he's coming up with, one-ball jokes, and he just thinks this is great. And I'm going, this is not great. You have cancer. There's nothing great about this. I grab his phone, and I said, now listen, I'm not really into this Twitter bullshit, but you are. Do you want me to let your people, your disciples, your tribe, your posse, do you want me to kind of let them know what's going on? And he goes, yeah, why don't you do that? And so I tweet, and boy, I came into the 21st century in 140 characters. Hey folks, this is Angela, and Clint has cancer. I don't, what do you say? And the internet breaks down. So it was kind of a touching moment, because now I've taken the reins for Clint in what might as well be like the Millennium Falcon of Twitter, of the Twitter. I'm like, whoa, how do you drive this thing? Like, I don't even know. I get 140 characters and I get to say anything? Like, this is great. Like, to 271 people, even better. So Clint goes into surgery. He comes out. Now we call him Lefty. And things are going pretty well. He's doing his chemo. His hair falls out. I get to shave his head. I offer to shave my head. He says no. I say yes. Well, he went. So the social media thing really takes off. And we have these shirts now. We've got these wristbands now. We love Clint because Clint's in a bad spot. He has cancer, and that's really where the power of social media comes in, because if it were up to me, this weird, reclusive, 30-something-year-old who's like, what is this Twitter garbage? I don't even know what this is. You guys, nobody, they'd be like, oh, Clint's wife? Who the hell is that? But this guy, he's got it. He's large and in charge, and he's got this Twitter persona and ball cancer. So here we've got, oh man, who better to be the spokesperson for ball cancer? I mean, besides Lance Armstrong, than Clint fucking Miller, who has not only ball cancer, but 2,781 people, and they're tweeting and retweeting, and this is the wrong thing to affix to 2,781 people. But the reality of cancer is that it's very expensive, and we did fall on hard times, of course, because he's not working and I'm not working, and I'm trying to take care of him, and we've got this mortgage payment and bills and cancer bills and kids and a dog and cars and all of these things that people, adults apparently, spend their money on. Because, as Mark said, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and apparently they spend a lot of money on tuition too. So social media really becomes Clint's go-to for emotional support, which, as his wife, I could cross my arms over my chest and I could be like, well, what do they got that I don't got? But the reality is that they actually do have something that I don't have, and it's not the vows. It's certainly not my dashingly good looks. It's a certain amount of just being anonymous, and I kind of fell into that too, because when I was at my worst for his cancer, I could kind of retreat into 140 characters and anonymously just go, guys, I'm really having a hard time with Clint having cancer, and I'm really uncertain about the future and where this is going to lead. So the reality is that it all comes back to this advice of, well, just take the antibiotics and you'll be okay. Yeah, maybe it will be okay, but it won't always be okay, because antibiotics, they're great. I've had them, you've probably had them. I think everybody's had them at least once in their life. But when it comes to cancer, when it comes to your body, I'm kind of getting off track here. This is the good advice and the bad advice. the good advice is, you got to listen to your body. You got to know what is and is not right for you. And after 6 months of coughing and your wife threatening to murder you and coming up with plans as to where she could hide your body in 47 of the 50 states, that's relatively bad advice. So if I could give you any bad advice, don't just take the antibiotics, run off to the pharmacy, turn the other cheek and go, no, I'm going to be okay. Because the reason Clint's not here tonight is because he died from that. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm relief batting. That's our story. Don't just take the antibiotics. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Steve Gonzales is a third-generation plasterer living in Polson, Montana, working mostly in Missoula. He taught me how to sling a hawk in trial, and he is still struggling to avoid bad advice. Please welcome Steve Gonzales.
So, I'm in the kitchen with my mom. She's making tortillas. It's after school. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm trying to see if I can get permission to go to the high school football game, then go to the Chula Vista dance after. She wants to know who's driving, who am I going with, and what time I'm coming back. So, Ed Bacon, he's going. Les Wanamaker, he's driving. We're going to get back at 11. My mom goes, well, I like Les. He's a nice guy. I go, no, Mom, he's a wimp, and he's a spoiled brat, and he never listens to nobody. So she gives me permission. Later on, they show up. I run out to the front yard, get in the car. It's a two-door. Ed opens the passenger side. I climb in the back seat. We're all excited. We're talking about how we're going to sneak down to TJ, which is Tijuana. We're not really, I hate to lie to my mom, but I wasn't going to tell her that. The thing is, you could party in Tijuana if you're 18, but most of us were 17. So you need to either trunk it, get fake ID, or use somebody's draft card, like your big brother's. So we had all our stuff together. I had Dennis Graham's temporary driver's license. He just turned 18, there's still time on it. Ed Bacon had his brother's draft card, and Les said he had something. So we're cruising. It takes like 20 minutes to get to the border. We get there. I go, okay, so don't forget, we got to pull over where the upholstery shop is, leave our rig, leave our car. And it's right there. We could see it. It's safe. And we walk through separately. That way, if anything happens, we're separate. So Les goes, no, I'm on a drive. I can leave in my car there. I go, look, we're going to walk. It's easier. We separate. We walk through. They don't even care. Man, we can do it all day long. No, I'm driving. I ain't going to leave my car there. First of all, you need insurance. Do you have it for your car? And what if you come back and you're drunk? You got to go through the Mexican guys. You got to go to the U.S. guys. We're going to get popped. Bobby says he does it all the time. It's cool. Bobby don't even got a car. He says you just act relaxed, go through. It's Friday. They're waving the cars through. I go, man, I don't know. Ed, let me out. Don't open the door, Ed. I'm going, God damn it. So it's too late to do anything anyway because we're getting closer. And they're waving all the cars. It's Friday. And then we show up and he's going, hey guys, what's your purpose in Mexico? Dance, meet friends. You don't look 18 to me. Oh, well, we're 18. Pass your ID. Pass my Dennis Graham's temporary driver's license. Ed passes his Tom Bacon draft card, and the guy looks at it. Les opens up this piece of paper, and it's like he took the driver's test, and they give you a paper, and you sign it and date it, and then take it home, and your parents or guardians sign it and bring it back and get your temper. He thought that was the one. He changed the month so he would be 18. And the guy goes, so what's this? He goes, well, I took my test. Well, you didn't date it. Well, what? And you have to have a guardian or a parent sign it. So this is actually just a piece of paper. And you're driving illegally. So what I need you guys to do is pull in the inspection area. That piece of shit. So we go over there, they escort me and Ed into the office. They make Les sit on the curb away from his car while they go through the whole thing and run the statewide to see if he stole it, check all the things. I'm watching everything that's going on. Border guy in the office goes, who's Dennis Graham? Because they kept our ID. Okay, so when's your birthday? I memorized it, okay, February, whatever. I need you to sign your signature right here, because I'm going to compare it. I'm going, Dennis P. Graham. I just guessed. He goes, well, what do you think? I go, I don't know. I tell you what, sign your name 10 times and see if you can sign it the same way. And I'm thinking, I can't even sign my real name 10 times the same way. I'm going to sign Dennis Graham's. So I'm doing that. Ed's over there, looks like he's going to die. We could see all the commotion. Okay, time goes on because we sat there and waited. And anyway, I'm speeding this up. So next thing you know, I see Les's parents there. His mom's all emotional. She's hands and stuff. And I see Les, and it looks like he's crying. Border guys are there, and they look in our direction. I'm thinking, oh, we're screwed. Ed's still quiet. Border guy comes in and goes, okay, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to ask you one time. Is this your draft card? Because it's a federal offense if you use somebody else's draft card. No, it's my brother's. We're dead. They walk it out. Big commotion. They drive away. My two friends get in his dad's car. His dad's this big, giant ex-Marine with a crew cut, plumber. He's got arms like that, and he just stood there and listened to the whole thing. I see him drive away, see the mom take the car. There I am alone, denying everything, lying through my teeth. I'm Dennis P. Graham. The border guy comes in and goes, well, Steve, you ready to tell us your real name? I died 1,000 deaths. How embarrassing. Busted again, caught again, my mom's gonna kill me. Oh, how embarrassing. I give my parents' phone number, they come. It takes about 20, 25 minutes, it's Friday night, it's busy. Here's my mom and dad. Now my mom is like that big. She's like Mexican, Indian, Aztec blood kind of. She loves her kids to this day, but she don't take no shit. She's walking in, holding this purse, it's like a gym bag. Growing up, it had every single thing in it. She had her flashlight and pens and napkins and toilet paper. And when we had my little brother, it was the baby formula and the diapers. And we go to the show, it was a peanut butter and jam sandwich with a box of raisins and the grapes and the penny candy. It weighed a ton. She's just beating the shit out of my... Mom, just wailing on me. And my dad, he's like that because he's always guilty of doing some shit. So he's like, goddamn, don't you cuss, I thought you better than that. Mom, I know, but stop, Oh, when it was over, I was just like, God damn, I'm fucking throbbing here. The border guys are like, they explain all the shit I did. I get in the back seat, we got to drive home. It's like 20, 25 minutes. It seemed like 2 hours. I'm just back there throbbing. I'm aching, going, God, I'm going to be in restriction like forever now. And then my mom starts, how could you do this to me? You embarrassed me. I was so ashamed. My son's down at the border. You're going to those whorehouses, the prostitutes with the disease. Like, Mom, and your brother's in Vietnam, and he wants to do officer cadet school and helicopter flight school and the security, and you're going to ruin it for him. I go, Mom, I'm sorry. God, I'm dying there. Here's my thoughts. Busted again. I was pissed. Mama tried to raise me better, but her teachings I denied. Leaves only me to blame, because Mama tried, Mama tried. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Jeff Ducklow is no stranger to adventure. Born without a sense of direction, made worse in a childhood mishap after a friend's uncle accidentally dropped him on his head, damaging his already damaged inner compass, Jeff Ducklow naturally chose to become a professional adventure guide, guiding men, women, and children oblivious to his affliction on hikes over mountain passes, rafting down raging rivers, and leading sea kayaking adventures in Alaska in whale-infested waters, at times in heavy fog. Jeff Ducklow is often quoted as saying, "Is it really an adventure if getting back is a certainty?" Having almost died unnecessarily on numerous occasions, Jeff is now a full-time massage therapist in Missoula who rides his unicycle to work in order to keep an element of danger in his day. He still loves the outdoors and enjoys recounting his exploits to anyone who will listen. Please welcome Jeff Ducklow.
I was in a band, I know how to do this. But I lack the strength. Oh, that's good. That was pretty much my story anyway, thanks. Thank you very much. So not every Alaskan vacation is all it's cracked up to be. And some Alaskan vacations are way more than they should have been. Which was the case about 4 years ago when for the first time I went to the Hawaiian island of Kauai. I do love adventure, and I did the normal touristy things of laying on the beach, playing in the surf, having a mojito or two, and having grown a little bored with those things, I wanted to kick up the adventure level. So I found a Hawaiian guy who was standing on the beach, and I said, if you only had 3 days left in beautiful Kauai, what would you do? And really without hesitation, he said, "Lost trail, man." I said, that sounds really hard to find. He said, "No problem, I'll draw you a little map." And he sketched out a map, a bunch of dirt roads with no names, where I'd come to a small footbridge and a small break in the jungle, which marked the beginning of the trail. No sign. So I should have known at that point that was very bad advice, but I was pretty excited about the adventure. The next morning, or afternoon actually, about 3 o'clock, I started the journey in my rental car. And pretty miraculously, I'd say, I found a little break in the jungle after about an hour and a half of driving. And I thought, this must be the trailhead, because I don't see anything else. And it's getting late. So I threw a few things in my backpack and took off at a very quick pace. About 2 miles in, I came to an opening in what's called Waimea Canyon. It's 3,000 feet deep, it's 10 miles long, and it's just spectacular. I'm taking pictures. There's waterfalls in the distance. The lava over time has turned red. And I thought, this is amazing. And that should have been enough. But I wanted more. So I looked at the map. And you know when you start doing this, you probably should go back. But I went forward, and the trail, after about another mile, it branched off. And there was no branch markings on this trail. So I stood in confusion looking down either one, and I remembered Robert Frost's poem about standing at the crossroads where two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that made all the difference. And it really did. It greatly impacted my life. I decided I would take the trail most traveled by, thinking that's probably it. And so I went pretty happily. It's now maybe an hour before sunset. I have a good 4 miles left according to his map, but it's a loop, so I should come back at the same place. So the trail starts to fade, and it fades so much I don't even know if I'm on a trail. And I end up on this really steep, maybe 1,500-foot rock slide area. And I'm so nervous about the darkness coming that I keep going across it very tenderly, and then realize this is crazy. And I look back, and there's no way I was going back what I just accomplished. It was too scary. So I decide to go up. I'm clinging to the hill. And I finally get up to the top. There's a little clearing, and I see that's where the jungle begins up there. And then I see these small yellow tape markings hanging from the trees, and I said, Eureka, it's a trail marker. So I went into the jungle, and I went for about 15, 20 minutes and started looking around and noticed there were yellow things hanging everywhere, like Christmas ornaments, and realized these were not trail markings. And then I went downhill, uphill, downhill. Next thing I knew, it was completely dark. It was over. I was in the jungle at night. I was pretty nervous because I'd heard a lot of stories about wild boar with the tucks that could tear a man in two in seconds. And they ran feral all over the island. So I considered my assets. I had an empty Nalgene bottle, which I started to fill with my urine. I'd read that somewhere, that you can recycle. So I added some liquid to the Nalgene, and then remembered I also had a cell phone. Of course, there's coverage in the jungle. I turn it on, not shockingly, no coverage. But in the darkness, I just started crawling around desperately, trying to find a place. And after about a half hour, I found a 1 inch by 1 inch parcel that had one bar. It was another miracle. So instead of calling 911, I called my girlfriend at the time. And I told her, look, I started off on this trail. I'm not sure even where the trailhead is. I'm not sure where the trail is. I'm not sure how to get back to it. I think I'm spending the night here in the jungle. And then she said, if you're happy with this message, press 1. I said, okay. I later heard this message I left and realized I was pretty impressed because my tone of voice sounded like I was at the mall and I'd be back just a little late for dinner. So there I was in the night, just fearful of the wild boar. And sure enough, after about 4 hours, branches are starting to snap, and I hear something barreling down the hill towards me, and my heart explodes, and I stand up with a burst of adrenaline, and by the beard of Zeus, I got about 9 feet up in a tree. For about 10 seconds before the branch broke, I was back on the canopy floor, but still filled with adrenaline. I found another branch about as high, and I sat there for several hours not wanting any bore contact. Eventually, my ass got so sore, I didn't care about getting bored. I sat down on the ground, and at that point, a cold, cold fog came in. And the temperature must have dropped 20 degrees. But I remembered the emergency poncho I had thrown in, whose thickness could be measured in terms of atoms. But I went ahead and I wrapped myself in that poncho, and I started shuddering, shivering, and I thought for sure hypothermia was going to take me down. But amazingly, I lived to sunrise. And it was the most beautiful sunrise I'd ever seen. And so this time, a little wiser, I called 911. And my battery warning started flashing, which with this old phone, 2012, meant it could crash at any moment. So I call 911, I get put on hold. And I'm on hold for a minute, then a minute and a half, and I'm watching it flash, going, this is it. And I get the captain of the fire department. And at this point, he says, where are you? I said, Lost Trail. I never heard of it. I said, you never heard of it? He goes, no, I've never heard of Lost Trail. I said, I'm not sure what to tell you. It's somewhere in the canyon. He goes, okay, we're going to get a GPS coordinate on you. Don't go anywhere. And I said, don't worry about that. I can walk out of here. I got plenty of daylight. He goes, no. Don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. You get lost. The jungle, it all looks the same. What you should know in my mind is I grew up with a mom who equated personal injury with the cost of medical care. For example, one time when I fell off my bicycle with a big gash in my leg, I came in the house. First thing she said in compassion was, oh, shit. And then, I'm not sure if this is a rhetorical question, do you know how much that's going to cost? I'm not sure. I'm 8 years old. I'm bleeding profusely. I'm not sure I'm capable of that calculation right now. All right, get my sewing kit. Oh, please, Ma, no. I can see my femur. All right, get in the car. I guess I'll take you to the hospital. There goes your allowance. So, yeah, that's how I grew up. So I did not want to incur this expense of being rescued, because I'd heard rescuing could be thousands of dollars. He says, I'm going to send a helicopter. I said, oh, no, not necessary. Not necessary. He says, no, that's what's going to happen, and stay still. Turn your phone off if it's about to die. We'll call you in 20 minutes. So I turn my phone off. 20 minutes come, I hear a helicopter, but they're on the wrong side of the canyon. And so I get back on the phone. I said, you guys are on the wrong side. He said, is there any break in the foliage? I said, no, there's no break. It's just trees. I said, but come to the other side. So they came to the other side and said, we can't see you. And then I remembered the old tattered yellow poncho. I took it out of the backpack and just started swinging it. And sure enough, they spotted it. And then my phone died. It was over. And then the helicopter took off. I didn't know what happened. I sat there in fear for another half hour. The helicopter came back. A guy breaks through the canopy on a wire. Incredible sound. And there's leaves blowing everywhere, scorpions and centipedes. And he hooked me into a harness. And so we're like face to face. We break up through the canopy, and it's amazing, and I think we're going into the helicopter, but the retraction stops, and we're just swinging below the helicopter. And as we go over the canyon, I say to myself, if this is $10,000, it's worth every penny. So I get the ride of my life until we came to a clearing where the rest of the fire crew rescuers were waiting. And then came the descent of shame. From the heavens, I was lowered down. Not a lot of words were spoken. I apologized and thanked them. And as we got in the fire truck down these dirt roads, they said, we're going to take you to your car. I said, thank you. And as we drove, I was fearing they'd ask the question, and sure enough, they did. So, what do you do for a living? Now, I knew I could tell them that there's two truths. One is I actually was a massage therapist, and I also was an adventure guide. The year was divided in half. But I thought about all they had done for me, and I thought I owed them something. So I said, I'm a professional adventure guide. And the guy driving, the captain, said, are you kidding me? I said, I wish I was. The crew was laughing. He gets on the CB radio, and he says, you guys won't believe this. The guy we rescued, he's an adventure guide. And so I was. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So, how many of you subscribe to the podcast? How many of you hear a very recognizable laugh every time? That's the one. Marissa France, everybody. She's our gong timekeeper. Thanks, Marissa. I want to make a podcast of like 3 minutes of her laughing. Thanks again to the Wilma, thanks to the Trail, thanks to the bookstore at the University of Montana, and thanks to the Top Hat for their years and years of support. Thanks to everybody who gave to Tell Us Something during Give Local Missoula on May 3rd. That was incredible. Thank you so much. Thanks to Find, which is this cool little vintage shop. Find is the first sustaining donor of Tell Us Something. They give monthly, and you too could do that too. Donations are tax deductible through the Missoula Community Foundation. Find is this cool little vintage shop on the corner of Russell and Wyoming, right near Home Resource. So go check them out. We're about to have a 10-minute intermission. So if you haven't had a chance to share your story on those little sheets, go ahead and do that and drop them off at those little red boxes at the bar. We're going to read them from the stage during intermission. There's a merch table. Stretch your legs, use the restroom, have a cigarette, get a drink, definitely get a drink, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Thanks so much for your attention. Hello. Hey. Hey, we're going to do that audience participation thing that I was telling you about. Sorry about the long intermission. I had some technological challenges. So I'm going to read the first one. These are anonymous bad advice stories that you submitted. I called in a bomb scare to hide the fact I was late for school again. My friend gave me bad advice.
All right. The worst advice I ever received just so happens to be conventional cliché wisdom on love. To marry someone who gives you butterflies in your stomach. What this common advice fails to realize or mention is that sometimes these people who give us butterflies, these people who may even be soulmates, are not necessarily the same people we are meant to spend the rest of our lives with. Sometimes these people are meant to come into our lives for a very specific reason, to teach us something about ourselves or to challenge or better us in some way. But when it comes to marriage and the rest of your days, I'd say finding someone with whom you share a deep friendship, uncanny communication, calm understanding is a more fulfilling route. Someone is a more Someone who brings you an incredibly sense of lasting peace rather than a relatively fleeting feeling of joy.
By the way, this is my friend Lauren Champa, everybody. Hope I said your name. Close. Okay. Bad advice. I was once dared to moon another party bus while on a brewery tour down the Bitterroot. The party bus turned out... The party bus, in quotation marks, turned out to be a bus of 5th graders on a Saturday adventure. Unfortunately, the chaperone at the kids' bus didn't find it as funny as my friends did. 1 month later in court, the judge forgave me of my sin and asked if I was indeed an astronomy teacher, as he suspected.
Once, when I was 7, 55 years ago, my oldest sister passed through the kitchen with a glass of vinegar on the way to the bathroom. I asked what the vinegar was for. She said it was for her hair. Do you drink it? I asked. Sure, she said. Can I have some for my hair? I asked. Have all you want. I can get more. So I drank the glass of vinegar. Today, I am bald.
What's wrong with bald? It was my first year teaching high school English, and it was every teacher's favorite time of year, homecoming. I was put in charge of supervising the sidewalk decorating team while they drew huge victory murals in the parking lot with sidewalk chalk. It was a long time to stand around with teenagers getting pumped up for the big game. After they had drawn on much of the sidewalk and part of the parking lot, one of the more artistic, seemingly upstanding seniors asked if they could draw on the side of the brick school wall. I said, no, automatically, but then he said very politely, it will show our school spirit. And it is going to rain this weekend anyway. In my first year's teacher's brain, it made sense. So they did. A while later, my principal wandered by and asked who let them draw on the wall. The look of disappointment on his face when I fessed up is forever etched in my brain. Don't trust teenagers.
When we were 5 and 8, my sister and I overheard our dad tell our mom someone should scoop up the shit in our yard from the neighbor's dog and put it in their mailbox. Well, we filled the neighbor's box with said shit. They watched us do it and told our parents, who laughed but made us scrub it out.
Bad advice. I told my younger roommate that peanut butter was a hidden gem as far as sexual lube goes. Oh, it gets better. Next day, I went to make my usual PB&J sandwich. I noticed that my extra crunchy peanut butter was significantly more empty.
My friend and hiking partner advised us that we didn't need a map to find Stanley Hot Springs because he had been there before. This is familiar. It was February and it had only been there in the summer. Still, 4 of us follow him into the wilderness. 5 hours late, with snow up to our upper thighs and 1 hypothermic member later, we camp on the trail. The next morning, we slowly hiked out without finding the hot springs.
Right? Okay, last one. Bad advice, everything that comes out of my best friend's mouth. Example, dye your hair purple. I think that's good advice. Okay, so we're gonna get back to the storytelling here in a couple of shakes. I'm gonna say,
Check out my bag.
yeah, this bag is hand screen printed by me. Would be great. Yeah, farmer's market friendly. It's made in the US, hand sewn in, I think, North Carolina. Made to order, so you can get them over at the merch table. And there's more stories to come, so buckle up. All right. Oh, this next guy said, write the bio for me, Mark. You know me. Ethan Sky came into his own in 2009 when he launched Ninja Mike's, the best breakfast sandwich in Missoula. Ninja Mike's allowed him to work summers in Missoula and spend time in Costa Rica in the winters. He is a proud single dad and has the only Spanish radio show in Missoula. Did you know this? Thursday afternoons on KBGA from noon to 2, you can listen to the best Latin, Spanish hip-hop, all that great salsa music, and it's just incredible, so tune into that. It's awesome. He's a comedian, a yogi, and he is my friend. Please welcome Ethan Sky.
Give it up for Mark Moss for putting this on. What a gift to this community that he does. So as he says, I did go to Costa Rica during the winter times. I lived in Missoula about 9 years, but I've only spent about 5 winters here. 4 of those winters, I flew down to the Caribbean with my 2-year-old son. And we weren't just tourists, okay? We weren't like traveling through the country. We had to pick a spot and settle down and stay there for about 6 months at a time. So we picked this small Rastafarian village on the coast of Costa Rica called Puerto Viejo. You guys familiar with Puerto Viejo? And we set up shop there. And my son went to preschool there for 4 years. He played on a soccer team that traveled to different villages and played other schools. I got a job at a restaurant, an Argentinian restaurant for some reason in Costa Rica. And I learned how to do empanadas and milanesas, and I paid rent. And we were fully engulfed. We started wearing Rasta color. It just happens. Red, green, and gold. Now, that sounds dreamy, right? We got to go to the beach all the time. A productive day down there is 3 hours on the beach doing nothing. So we did that a lot. But it sounds dreamy to get out of the Missoula winters, but there's some hardships about living in the Caribbean. This was the poorest region of the country as well. And we were introduced to poverty. And we never had hot water. A lot of people couldn't afford hot water, and I thought it was good for us to live the same way like that. And so my 2-year-old son had to take cold showers, which was rough. Sometimes he wanted a little hot water, so I'd boil it on the stove, make sure it's cold, and then just put him in this plastic bin, right? That was rough. That was rough. The moistness of the jungle down there makes everything grow, just like mushrooms everywhere, on your clothes, on your toes. It's just gnarly, gnarly. It smells. So that was rough. But the hardest thing were the mosquitoes. Yeah. The mosquitoes, so in Montana we got mosquitoes. They're pretty big, they're pretty gnarly, but they're not tropical mosquitoes. Mosquitoes down there are huge, and they carry diseases, you know, like dengue fever, malaria, other things. But we've all gotten bitten by a mosquito, and it hurts, and it itches, and it's annoying, and it's horrible. Anyway, it's a tourist town, so you could see all the tourists coming in, the pale North Americans and Europeans, they come in white, and they leave red with sunburns and mosquito bites. It was just, that was part of the deal. The first year I was down there, my son got destroyed by mosquitoes. And the locals were like, do you have a mosquito net? I was like, no, dude, I'm a local now. I'm a native. I'm like you guys. They're like, we have mosquito nets. I'm like, oh. So I got a mosquito net. Year 2, we went down, and I had less money, so I couldn't afford the beachfront property for $200 a month. So I moved into the jungle for $150 a month, deep in the jungle. And as we already heard, with the centipedes and the scorpions and the snakes and bigger mosquitoes, that's where we chilled. Now, my son got bit by a special mosquito when he was 3 years old. He got bit on his wrist twice, and he got bit on his face. Now, just like any other 3-year-old or 50-year-old, everyone, it's hard not to scratch mosquito bites. Am I wrong? And this 3-year-old just wouldn't stop touching his bites. And I became neurotic about it. You know, like, dude, stop touching your thing. You know, get your hands away from there. And they just kept on growing, you know? They wouldn't heal. They wouldn't heal, and it just kept on growing, bigger and bigger, all 3 spots. So I went to my neighbor. I was like, what is going on? And my neighbor looked at my son. He's like, oh, he's got papillomoyo, which is slang for leishmaniasis, which I later found out was a parasite that you get from mosquitoes. So I was like, oh, shit. Like, what? I'm like so out of my realm. I don't know what to do. I've lived here for a year. This is my 2nd year. I feel like I'm involved. I'm part of the community. You know, we're doing all the things. We're living the life down here. But I'm so far out of my league as far as healthcare down there. I don't know what to do. So my neighbor says, don't go to the doctor. Hashtag bad advice. This is all you need to do. Go into the jungle, find this white flower, take the green leaves off the flower, mash up the green leaves into a paste, and put it on the wounds. I was like, psh, no problem. I'm like, you guys, I can do this. So I go into the jungle, and he comes with me. He's like, there it is right there. So I find the flower, and I take the leaves, and I take them home, and I'm super psyched. I'm like, F Western medicine. Like, I can do this. I can do this. Mashing it up, cutting it up, and then I apply it to my son. He says, you just got to put it on a paste, stick it on there, and maybe put a piece of tape on there, right, so it stays. And the juices from these flower leaves will kill this parasite. Because the parasite cannot be killed by antibiotics. It's just a strong, papillomoy is the real deal down there. So I mash it up, make this little paste. I put it on his face, I put it on his wrist, and then I'm like, okay, now what? He's like, now just wait. So he spends a couple days with this on his face. I go down, we're hanging out. My neighbor sees us out in town, and he calls me over. He's like, Ethan, what are you doing, man? What's with your kid? I'm like, I'm doing what you told me to do, man. He's like, no. It looked like I had just like stuck leaves on his face, right? He's like, you gotta mash it up into a paste. So he's running around with these leaves taped all over him. I'm trying to be like a native. It's not working. So then I'm like, you know what? I should probably make sure that this is the right diagnosis, right, from my neighbor. So I go to a clinic. And the way we get around down there is on bicycles. And the bicycles, you can fit up to 5 people on a bicycle down there. Those are called minivans. Get your whole family on there. Anyway, it's a dangerous idea, so we got one of those where he had a seat on the frame. And we rode through the jungle about 3 miles up to Hone Creek, where there was a little clinic there. And this is like straight out of MASH, like 1970s. Old equipment, not sure what's going on. I told him what the deal was. I said, I think he's got papillomoyo. He's like, okay, let's take a test. And so the whole idea, as I said before, everything was wet there. All the mushrooms growing, just fungus everywhere. So the wounds on the mosquito bites, it takes forever to heal. because they need to dry out. And so I'd watch him at night trying to see if his wounds are drying out, and they'd get a little bit dry, or so I'd think, right? I took him to this test, and the way that they test to see if it's a parasite, they take a razor blade, scrape open the wound to get inside and to see to get the parasite and put it on a microscope. So I'm watching this as he takes out the razor blade and he's scraping my child's face. He's screaming. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm about to freak out. And it gets over, there's blood. I'm like, dude, I've been spending weeks to try to get this dry. Thank you for opening it up again. And then he said, we'll contact you with the results. I bike down back to my house in the jungle, and we get the results, and sure enough, it was papillomoyo. The doctor says you need to take this heavy-duty shot if you want to get rid of papillomoyo. All the locals, the natives, the homeopathics, don't do the shot. We don't know what's in the shot. Chemicals. So I was like, yeah, that sounds horrible. So my other neighbor said, you know what you should do? Bad voice number 2. You know what you should do? You go into the jungle, again, farther down, and there's a woman there that does energy healing. Dude, I don't know what I was thinking. I know. I could be arrested for neglect, honestly. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do instead of get this shot, because the shot sounds horrible. So we go into the jungle farther, and we find this little bamboo hut, and we walk in there. It's very, very, very nice. It's calm. There's water running. There's a massage table, yoga mats. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is going to cure my kid. So he's 3. He's oblivious. He's got these festering wounds. He's playing with toys, and this woman's telling me to connect with him by putting my hand on his head and thinking about him and good thoughts. And once we get that energy connection, we're able to transform the healing powers that I can give onto him and get rid of this parasite. All in Spanish. I'm like, I think I understand. This isn't working. This is 3 weeks now, and these wounds are getting huge. And it's horrible. I can't sleep at night. I wake up in the middle of the night with flashlights just checking him to see if they're getting smaller, if they're drying out, if the mosquito nets are tucked in, if he's got more bites. Just neurotic, obsessed on the health of my child. Ultimately, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I go back to the clinic with them, and I was like, sign me up for the shots. So I was like, okay, and they get it ready, and they bring out this huge-ass needle. And my kid is this big, okay? And this needle is gigantic, because it's got to be an intermuscular injection, right? It's not just a little thing. You got to go right in the top of your rear right here, and deep, so it can penetrate and get in, and it's supposed to kill everything. So I don't know how to explain this to my 3-year-old son, like, listen, we're going to do this. He doesn't know what's going on. I'm scared as hell. I just want to heal these wounds, you know? So it's me, this Costa Rican nurse, this MASH clinic, and we put my son on the table, and the needle comes out, and he's like, wait a second. But not so calmly. He's like freaking out. It takes me and the nurse about 2 minutes to pin this kid down on his stomach while she gives him this intermuscular injection in his butt. And that was intense. That was intense. And I still think about that today. And then she goes to me and she goes, okay, you just have to come back for 9 more of those. 10 days of this and we'll get you free. I was like, 9 more shots like that? I don't know if I can handle this. So we go back to our village and we find a local doctor so we don't have to go all the way to this other place to get these shots. And we tell him the deal, and he's like, you know what, it's common around here. That's actually the the mark of the native is what they say, these marks that come of this. So I was like, great, whatever, just get rid of this shit, okay? So at $2 for every shot, as we pull up to the clinic every day, my son knows what's happening, right? So he's yelling. We go in there. They're really sweet, though. They put on cartoons in the waiting room. And when we come back, it was the same wrestle every time, 10 days in a row, wrestling him down, shooting him up, and it was a traumatic experience. But what got him through that every day is ice cream. That dude ate so much ice cream in those 10 days, and it helped out a lot. It helped out a lot for his morale. It helped me out as well, because it was this quick pin down shot. Let's go get some ice cream. 10 days in a row after day 10, they're like, you know what? It's not healed yet. We need to keep going. And so we keep going. And day 14, so only 4 more days. Day 14, and it finally has dried out on all his wounds, on the wrist and the face, and we're free of this crazy parasite that he had. Now he does have marks. He has 2 marks on his wrist, and he's got a mark on his face. And I think about this story all the time when I look at it. He's still a beautiful boy, very handsome, but I see this mark and I think about his courage, and I think about his strength, and I think about how that was the worst month of my parenting career so far to date. We'll see what happens, right? Yeah, right, teenager, here we come. But yeah, and we got through it, and I'm proud of him, and that's my story tonight. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Canyon. Thanks, Ethan. Broch Gnose was born and grew up in Gonzales, Oregon. His home was centered around music. He started classical violin and piano lessons at the age of 5. By 8, he was singing and playing violin with his parents and 2 older sisters in performances at schools and churches around the Northwest. Playing in youth and community orchestras and symphonies from an early age gave him an extensive stage performance experience. In high school, he added the viola to the lineup and was inspired by a friend to learn drums and percussion. After high school, he became interested in radio, and through the years, he has worked or volunteered at Christian Top 40, country, public, and college radio stations. You think he's going to tell a music story, don't you? He's not. After getting married in 1998, he and his wife moved to Missoula, and for the last 7 years, Broch Gnose has worked for the Kettle House Brewing Company. Please welcome Broch Gnose.
Good evening. I'm slightly embarrassed to say that this is the first time I've been in the remodeled Wilma, but it's a heck of a reason to be here. When I was in high school, one of my best friends was Dean, and he's the guy that got me interested in drums and percussion. We made quite the pair. At the time, as a sophomore in high school, I was already 6'2". I already wore size 15 shoes, which my father hated because they were expensive. And my buddy Dean was 6'3", pushing 260. We were quite the motley pair. And we got this idea in February that we wanted to hitchhike from Corvallis, Oregon to Hoodoo Ski Resort up on US Route 20 at the top of Sandy Am Pass. At the time, it was just this dinky little ski resort. As 15-year-olds, 14, 15-year-olds, we were gonna hitchhike up there. My mother said, hell no. But never swore, so she didn't say hell. And we said, all right, fine. We gave up on the idea. My mother, unbeknownst to us, decided to ask our friends, Dennis and Linda, who had 4 little girls, ranging from about 10 months to about 7 years old. And they loved myself and Dean. So she got this idea to ask them if they were going up to the mountain that day. Of course they were, and they'd be happy to take us with them. So my mom told me and Dean that, and we said, we decided we don't want to go anymore. And she said, hell no, you are going. I got you this ride. They're happy. The girls can't wait to go sledding with you. Yes, Mother. So, on a Sunday, early in the morning, Dean and I are at my house waiting for Dennis and Linda and the 4 kids. Of course, we're trying to be grumpy teenagers. And with 4 little kids, you can't be grumpy for very long, fact. 2 hours in the car, we were singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat along with everybody else. We got up to the ski area, and for those of you familiar with this area, there's a little winter access point. We got up there, it was a beautiful day. Sun shining, few clouds, there was nobody there. Dean and I thought, great, we're gonna go, we're gonna take our tubes, we're gonna find a big kid hill. No. We spent almost all day towing the kids on their sleds, getting more and more annoyed with my mother with every pass of a sled. Up the hill, which was this long, down the hill. Up the hill, down the hill. Finally, Dean and I said, all right, we gotta get our tubes and we have to go find a hill. So we told Dennis and Linda, we said, we've gotta go find a hill. We gotta go do a real sled. And they said, okay, great, go for it. So of course we start walking off and all 4 girls, we wanna go, we wanna go. And both of us immediately just turned around and went back to the van. And Dennis and Linda said, no, no, you have to let the big boys go do big boy things. Finally, yes. So we walked off. We went down the road, went one direction first, didn't find anything, too many trees. Went another direction, we were walking down the road, came to a corner, and we saw the hill. It was perfect. It was so steep, we both knew my parents and his dad would say, hell no, you're not going down that hill. But it was perfect because it had a nice slope. The run out was right onto the road. We had all sorts of space. If we got enough speed, we could go for a mile, we thought. Great idea. So we hiked up the hill. We both got up there and looked down and looked at each other and said, damn, this is really steep. Should we do this? Yeah, let's do it. You gonna go first? No, I'm not going first. I went first. Picked a spot, thought, okay, if I launch from here, I'm gonna be good. Go straight down the road, it'll be awesome. Go so fast. I launched off, bounced a couple times as I was going down. Didn't go quite the direction I wanted to, but I was sure it was possible. Dean, as I'm hiking back up the hill, Dean decides to launch before I could give him any advice. 260-pound 15-year-old. Screams down this hill. He was going so fast. Hit the bottom of it. I'm hiking up the hill and I didn't see. I turned around and he was stopped sitting in the snow, kind of shaking his head. I wasn't sure exactly what happened. And So he starts hiking back up the hill. So I get ready to launch, and he yells at me, "Hey, Broch, don't launch from there. Move over like 6 feet. I almost hit this rock." I didn't really hear that part. But I moved over 6 feet. Launched off. You know when you hit a tube, when you're launching down the slope, you kind of have that bounce. So I hit the tube, I had a bounce. I was like, all right, I'm going the right direction. This is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna hit the road. Got about halfway down the slope, hit another bounce, little bump. Still feeling okay about it. And I hit the bottom of that slope, the transition onto the road, and I knew I wasn't going the right direction. I stopped. From there on, I only have little snippets of memory. So I'm going to share with you just the parts that I remember. I remember waking up on my back in the middle of the road, looking up at strangers and listening to them talk, trying to breathe, trying to get up. I couldn't get up. I couldn't breathe. I heard someone say, "Go get ski patrol." Soon, a truck pulls up. They put me in the truck. The next thing I remember is in the ski patrol hut at Hoodoo. And I hear a guy talking, and he says, "Ambulance is on the way." I think, oh, okay, that's probably good. And I tell the guy, "Hey, can I have a glass of water? I'm really thirsty." And he says, "No, you can't have any water." I wondered why. Next thing I remember was in the ambulance. It's going quickly, but not fast. And I looked up at the guy and I said, "I'm thirsty. Can I have a glass of water?" The guy said, "No, you can't have any water." I said, "All right, well, I'm going to take a little nap." And he grabbed my shoulder and he said, "No, you're not." And I remember him reaching up and banging on the wall of the ambulance, on the front wall. And he told the driver, "Hit it, we're losing him." Next thing I remember was in the hospital. They bounced me around a lot. My parents weren't there. Dennis and Linda couldn't get a hold of them. So they decided they were going to try and get a hold of my aunt. While they're doing that, I'm back in the back of the hospital thinking I need a nap. I want a glass of water. They put me in the tube. This tube. It just felt weird. And I didn't know what was going on. They told me that I had to have surgery, but they couldn't do surgery until my parents showed up. My aunt finally called. She was a nurse in Colorado at the time, and she said, "I am giving you permission to do this surgery." Just as they put the mask on my face, my mom showed up. I have a brief memory of seeing her for about 5 seconds. And then I was out. I woke up, what I found out was 2 days later. They had given me a sedative after my surgery. I woke up to see my mother and a nurse. I was very groggy, and I said, "Mom, what happened?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to let the nurse talk first." So the nurse told me, "You're going to be very sore. We had to cut you open." And I'm thinking, well, obviously you did something. You told me you were going to have to do surgery, so just come on, let it out with it. And she said, "Do you want to see your scar?" I said, "Sure." She lifted up my shirt to show me an almost 8-inch scar from the middle of my sternum to my belly button, filled with 17 staples. I mean, construction staples. These things were huge. And I said, "Okay, so what happened?" She told me that I had come down the hill and Dean had actually hit the rock pretty hard. But I didn't get that part. I hit the rock, 3.5 foot tall rock, 4 feet by 4 feet, dead center of my sternum. They found my glasses 15 feet in the forest, buried in the snow. And I said, okay, well, that explains why I couldn't breathe and why it really hurt. And then I asked her, well, the ski patrol wouldn't let me have a drink of water. I was really thirsty. Why not? And she said, well, because you were bleeding internally. And it's very bad to drink water when you're bleeding internally. News to me. I said, okay. So in the ambulance, they wouldn't let me take a nap. Why wouldn't they let me take a nap? And my mother started to cry. And she said, because you almost died, Broch. And I kind of took this in and thought, all right, well, but I didn't die. Here I am. Hurts like hell, but here I am. So then I said, all right, well, that's how I got here. I'm in a hospital. Where am I? She said, you're in Bend. This was the closest hospital. I said, okay, so what happened? Like, what? Tell me about the surgery. Turned out that when they did the MRI, CAT scan, whatever it was they did, they couldn't see anything. So they didn't know what was wrong. So they had to do a midline exploratory so they could see my entire abdomen. When they opened me up, I had 2.5 quarts of blood in my abdomen. I almost bled out. And my mother had been very nervous about it because she thought I was going to have a blood transfusion. I gave myself my own blood transfusion. They sucked 2.5 quarts of blood out of my abdomen, cleaned it, reoxygenated it, and gave it back to me. At this point, I am realizing how serious this situation was. And I said, well, Mom, what happened to Dean? And she started to cry again. And she said, honey, Dean's here, but he was really scared to come see you. And I said, well, why? And she cried some more, and she said, because he feels responsible, honey. And in my mind, I'm like, come on, bullshit, he's not responsible. And she said, he'd really like to see you. Is that okay? I said, of course. My best friend. Send him in. So she and the nurse walked out. About a minute later, my buddy, 6'3", 260-pound Dean, walks into my room. He sees me and immediately starts to shed crocodile tears. And he just stands there and looks at me and cries and shakes his head. And I put my hand out to him as he's walking to the other side of my bed, because all the monitor and everything was on this side. Just tears streaming down his face. He pulled up a chair, sat down next to me, held my hand, put his head against my shoulder, and sobbed. And all he could say was, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
He's tall. Thanks, Broch. Born and raised in Missoula, Melissa Lynn is a first-grade teacher at Lowell School. She is a cultivator of lofty goals and a connoisseur of cheap red wine. Her life motto is, do it until it ain't fun anymore. She's a classic Missoulian, a long-distance road biker, mild hiker, camp fanatic, classic raft bow flower. Yet somehow... Yes. Somehow she still can't ski. Please welcome Melissa Lynn.
All right, so I am here to tell you a story, which is why you came, right? And this story is the story of Chafe 2010. But like any good story, there's a backstory to the story. And like any other good story, the story starts with, so I met a guy in a bar. Meet this guy in a bar. You know, he's nice, he's great. I didn't get drunk enough to really like him, but I got buzzed enough to give him my phone number, which he pursued relentlessly, till the point where I was like, okay, fine, lunch, we'll go to lunch. Because everyone knows lunch is not actually a date, and there's some sort of like always after event that you can go to. Well, I gotta get to the bank, I gotta run. So lunch seemed like a safe idea. So I made him for lunch, and we actually had a really good time. And he turned out to be a fantastic person. And we started talking about biking. And I think the situation was that I was riding my mountain bike because my old Peugeot road bike that I was riding had a flat tire, and I didn't know how to fix it, something along those lines. And so he says, okay, well, you should just borrow my bike for the winter and the fall and the spring, because I only ride it in the summer. He's like, it's a nice bike. It's a Kona Jake. And I'm thinking, yeah, that is a good bike. Oh, yeah. But then I'm also thinking in my mind, if you borrow this bike, you're going to have to continue this. But my brain didn't quite get that message to my mouth, because what came out was, oh, hell yeah, I'll take the bike. Let's go. So he says, all right, let's load up in the car. I'll go get it right now. I'm like, yes, score. So we're in the car. We're going to get the bike, and about halfway through this car ride, I think, I wonder if this is that proverbial piece of candy that you're not supposed to take from strangers. So I, look around the car. It's a really nice, clean truck. He's got that pack of gum that fits in the cup holder, He's playing Dave Matthews. I see no duct tape, no rope, and I think, okay, I think I'm safe. I feel okay about this. So we get the bike, and he gives me a ride back to my house. In hindsight, my mother later told me, you let him know where you live? I was like, yeah, he gave me a bike. It's cool. Well, as it turns out, because I'd been borrowing this bike or using this bike, we went on a couple of dinner events. I wouldn't call them dates. It was strictly platonic friendships. It was. And it gets to be about Christmas time, and he says, I got you a Christmas present. And I'm thinking, shit, dude, I didn't get you a present, but that's cool, give it to me. So he pulls out this nicely rolled up piece of paper, like a scroll, and it's tied all pretty. And he goes, I wrote you a poem. And I think, oh, fuck, red flag. Red fucking flag. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure he's gonna pay for dinner. So like, what kind of positive feedback do I know about poems? Like, nice job, I like your pantomime, I don't know. So I unroll the poem, and it's actually a picture of the bike. And I look at him, and I'm thinking, please don't just start waxing poetry in front of me right now. Like, this is gonna be really weird. And he goes, I'm buying a new bike, so I want to give you this bike. The bike that he'd let me borrow in the first place. And I'm thinking, all right, hell yeah, I just scored a free bike. And he goes, but there's one condition. And I thought, yeah, here we go. Is it? He goes, you need to do one major bike ride with me. And I thought, well, that is way less sluttier than I thought you were gonna ask for, so I am sold. Yes. And he goes, do you know of any major rides to do? And I was like, yeah, Rat Pod, let's do Rat Pod. So Rat Pod is 130 miles. It's a ride around the Pioneer Mountains in one day. Fantastic. fantastic ride. And it's on the bucket list. He says, all right, well, we're going to do it. So we sign up with Missoulians on Bicycles, Missoulians on Bikes, another fantastic organization, Moby, as it is for short. And we start riding. So the first ride's in February. Okay, we show up. I'm wearing skivvies, like long johns, much like what I have on now. Ski socks, which is ironic that I own them because I don't ski. Crocs, some sort of random pullover, and a down vest, okay? I'm not clipped in, I don't have Lycra, I don't even know what gels are at this point. And we show up, we're like, yeah, we're here to ride. And Moby is such a fantastic, Missoulians on Bicycles, such a fantastic organization that they just took us in and we're like, oh, you poor sweet thing, yeah, let's ride. So we ride and we realized quickly that the next ride we needed to have on the Lycra, you know, the tight fitting clothes and the weird gloves, and we learned how to clip in, and so we grew as riders. And about April, we're on some great ride. I think we're actually biking up Lolo Pass, which was a good feat. And this gentleman in the club says, oh yeah, so you guys are gonna do Rat Pod. That's awesome. You know, you should do this ride over in Idaho called the Chafe. I was like, the Chafe? Chafe. How do you spell Chafe? And he goes, you know, it's C-H-A-F-E. I'm a first grade teacher. That sneaky E is gonna bite the A, Chafe. That ride is called the Chafe. It is not the Chafe. So, I was like, you know, poor kid, can't spell, no big. And he goes, yeah, you know, it's a 160-mile ride over in Idaho. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the poor guy, not only can he not read, he's horrible at math. Like, who does a 160 in preparing for a 130 ride? No. So I don't know if I actually like verbalized that or if I just had the look of like, because he says, no, it's flat. It's a flat ride, you know. It's a good endurance training ride. And I was thinking, oh yeah, endurance. That's something I should be doing, endurance, yeah. All right, well, let's do it. So Matt and I, the bike friend, we sign up to do the Chafe over in Idaho. And we pull up into Idaho, and we pull up, and I'm standing there, I'm eating a bagel in this hand, monster cookie in this hand, large coffee with cream right in front of me, you know, I'm just gnawing at it. And these other people are pulling up, and they've got on like good Lycra, you know, like kits, and they got gel, you know, they're sucking down this gel, and like Gatorades, they're just having at it, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? It's flat, why would you do this? And they're the kind of people that are lifting their bikes out with one finger, because they're so light. And their wheels, I don't even think they have rubber on their wheels because God forbid there's friction, okay? So Matt and I, we go to get our bikes out. It's a two-man job because they're heavy. And not only are they heavy, but we have the racks on the back and we thought we needed to bring a trunk of shit. I'm pretty sure I had like flip-flops, a raincoat, a bottle of Gatorade, not the powders, bottle of Gatorade, probably a couple of sandwiches, maybe a camera. You know, I might even brought my swimsuit. I don't know what I was thinking. So our bikes are heavy. And we're like, that's cool. We got this. It's fine. So we start off, and like, it's flat. It's a flat ride. Bagel's kicking in. I'm feeling good. And we get going. And mind you, at this point, I am in Lycra, and I am in clip-on shoes. Okay, we got rid of those Crocs. So we get going. And the first thing out of the gate is this long hill that curves this way. And I thought, that's cool. That's cool. You gotta get up to get down. And then it's gonna be flat. 160 miles of flat. That's what the guy told me. So I'm climbing this hill. Mind you, I don't quite yet know how to climb the hill. You know, that you gotta get up and tap the saddle in between. You know, I'm granny gearing it up. Yeah. And it's like the M. You know where you hike the M and you think you're at the top, but you're not? There's like a whole other mountain up there. So we get to the top of this hill, and there's a whole other mountain. And I was like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. It's cool. It's gonna get flat. So we're cranking this out. Right about the time where I think I'm gonna die, stop number 1 shows up. And we get there, and somebody says, yeah, those warm-up pills, those are great. Warm-up pills? You gotta be fucking kidding me. Warm-up pill? I just climbed a mountain pass. So the next 30 miles is nothing but up, 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 down, up, up, up. It's horrible. Horrible. So we get to the second rest stop, and somebody says, yeah, that's the worst. It flattens out from now. And I was like, really? Because your version of flat is different than my version of flat. So we go, and sure enough, it did flatten out, and it was gorgeous. And then all of a sudden we turn, and we're on the riverbed, and I'm like, yes. Where there's a river, it's flat. All right, cool. So we're biking along, and we turn into this headwind. And I don't know if you've ever biked into a headwind, ever, in Missoula. It's not pleasant. And this wasn't just like a gentle breeze to cool you down. This was a headwind, like coming on. To the point where I look over and I'm like, oh, yeah, and there's a turtle like passing me right here. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. So we get to the third rest stop. And we're like, yeah, we're good. We got this. It's cool. And somebody says, yeah, the sweep car is about 5 miles out. It's coming to get us. I was like, oh my God, we're about to get swept. The sweep car is the car that picks up the losers, essentially. I was like, all right, I had one goal, which was finish the race, and now I have a more pending goal, which is not get picked up by that damn sweep car. So we're like, and I'm thinking, you know what? How bad do I really want those flip-flops and that coat and that camera and my suitcase on the back of this bike? I'm biking and biking. I look back at Matt, and he's like, yeah, just keep going. We got this. We got this. So we get to the fourth rest stop, and I look back at Matt, being like, do you want it? And he's like, yes. They have ice cream. Ice cream. And I was like, okay, ice cream. So we get in, we grab the ice cream, and I swear I was like delusional. I didn't even know what to do. That I just was like smearing on my face. Because I've seen people do that in marathons, but they do it with water. And I was just a little like off. So I got ice cream running in my face, which actually is kind of good because I can go like, get a few licks in. And we're just racing against this pace car that I don't know if really existed or not. Like racing against a stupid pace car, trying to finish 160 miles in a headwind after doing all these crazy flat hills, you know? So we're pulling it, and as we're pulling into town, they're tearing it down. Okay, race is over. Like nobody's there anymore. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm finishing this. Finish. So I got a little lost in town. I don't even know what town I was in. I got a little lost because they pulled down all the like cool flags, and we bust in backwards to the park where the race had ended. You know, and the bikers are there with their shoes off, and they're drinking beer and eating barbecue, and we bust in, and people look at us, and they're like, oh. And it was the most slowest, awkward, uncomfortable clap as a true chafe could be. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. We have one more storyteller. I want to make you aware of some upcoming events, though, real quick. At the Top Hat, a whole bunch of free shows to round out June. And then in July, we see Blitzen Trapper on the 8th, Ben Soley on the 15th with John Florida's Trio opening. I saw John here tonight. Hey, John. Protege and the Indignation on July 19th. And you can get tickets for those shows at the Top Hat box office or tophatlounge.com. At the Wilma, we see Clint Black on this Saturday, Kim Ock with Jerry Joseph on July 13th, Grace Potter on July 15th, Josh Ritter and JJ Gray on the 16th. You can get tickets for these shows at the Top Hat box office or thewilma.com. The next Tell Us Something event is actually at the Peace Farm, and there are limited seats available. Those tickets go on sale in the morning at tellussomething.org. And then in September, on the 21st, here at the WOMA, you'll see Tell Us Something as part of the Montana Book Festival. The theme is Fork in the Road. John Turk received his PhD in chemistry in 1971 and wrote the first environmental science textbook in North America. He has since engaged in extreme outdoor expeditions. John's circumnavigation of Ellesmere with Eric Boomer was nominated in 2012 by National Geographic as one of the world's top 10 adventures of the year, and was also awarded Expedition of the Year by Canoe and Kayak magazine. He received first place in print journalism by Northern Lights Awards. John's most recent book is The Raven's Gift. His newest book, Crocodiles and Ice, A Journey into Deep Wild, will be released in September. Learn more about John and his work at johnturk.net. He also wrecked his bike pretty badly today and arrived here 20 minutes after being released from the hospital. Please welcome John Turk.
Thank you. About 3 hours ago, I got some advice from my orthopedic surgeon to get my shoulder operated on tomorrow morning. I hope that's good advice. That's not my story, okay? The Arctic Ocean is about 5 million square miles, about the same size as the United States, the continental United States. In the wintertime, this ocean is almost entirely frozen to solid ice. But in the summertime, under the influence of 24-hour sunlight, the ice breaks up into chunks and it starts moving around, you know, driven by the spin of the earth and the winds and whatnot. And you have this maze of ice and water, and it's all slurring around. Some of these ice floes are like 6 feet thick and might be the size of a football field. Some of them are 50 feet thick and large enough to land an airplane on. Some of them are golf ball size. Okay, so you have this mix of ice. And the Arctic Ocean is largely landlocked. But there's a few straits where it's connected to the greater oceans of the world. One of these straits is the Nari Strait between Greenland and Ellesmere Island up in the Canadian Arctic. So in the summertime, the strait is 12 miles wide, so you have a whole continent of ice being jammed. It's being pulled by the spin of the earth, by the heat of the sun, by entropic forces, basic thermodynamics of mixing of fluids. These are cosmic forces driving this ice into this very narrow channel, and the ice can't fit. It's like trying to squeeze too much through the tube of a toothpaste, and it starts smashing up against the rocks, and chunks of ice as big as a football field, 6 feet thick, are flying around in the air, and they're breaking and smashing up against the cliffs, and ice chunks, little ice chunks, are dancing rainbows in the sky, and it's a big commotion. And Eric Boomer and I were in our kayaks trying to kayak south in this. We were trapped. So, you know, a couple weeks went by and people started getting worried about us, so they started giving us advice. We had a satellite phone. So the first advice was from a friend of mine, Paul Attella. He said, "Don't do anything stupid." Yeah, right. I mean, the last guy that got caught in the ice that I heard about, that, you know, fell out of his boat, within seconds, he was squished until his eyeballs popped out, right? It would be stupid to get in our kayaks and try to go out in that mess. But it would also be stupid to wait here in the high Arctic with no chance of rescue until we ran out of food and winter came on and we froze to death and starved to death. So don't do anything stupid is not really much of an advice in any way. It's like patting you on the butt and saying, good job, boy, you know? So, okay, so another couple days go on and then we get a text from the Canadian Coast Guard commander. I figure, well, this is gonna be really good advice. This is gonna work. He says, hey boys, all that ice is eventually streaming south, so find a big old chunk of mean rammer ice, multi-year ice, you know, and get out on that big old ice floe and ride that puppy all the way to Boston. So we said, yeah, that's good advice. So we waited 2 more days, and then this big rammer chunk of ice comes through, and it was a couple 100 yards offshore. Well, getting that 200 yards wasn't easy. A lot of the ice in there was like the size of that table, and what you have to do is long line the boats. You get a big long line, and you run across that ice because you can't stop on it. It'll tip over. It's like a frog running across the water until you find a piece of ice about as big as a stage, and then you stop and you drag your boat. And it took us 3 hours to go 200 yards. We got on this rammer piece of ice and we set up our tent, and it was gonna take a long time to get to Boston. So we look at our GPS and we're going a half a knot south. Well, a half a knot is 12 miles a day, you know, it's not that fast, but we're making it through the Nari Straits. So we're doing good, we go to sleep. Boomer shakes me awake and he says, hey, John, we got a problem. And he's holding his GPS, you know, looking at it like it's a Bible. I said, what's wrong, Boomer? He says, we're not going south anymore. We hit a back eddy. We're going 3 miles an hour north towards the North Pole. And oh no, so we jump out of our tent and we run around and all the ice relaxed. We were on this big floe in the middle of an ocean, you know, and there's no ice anywhere. And then the ice closed in, the tide changed, and kapow! And our floe starts shaking and rolling like it's an earthquake, and it starts breaking into pieces, you know. And we pile everything in our kayaks, you know, jumping in there fast, you know, and we get in our boats and the ice is going along and we start paddling and then we jump out of their boats because the ice is smashing into each other and rearing up, and we start doing the frog dance across the little floes again, you know, and we're running across the floes. You know, we thought this was good advice from the Coast Guard commander. But now it didn't seem like good advice. Oh, man. So finally, after several hours, we get to shore again. We're only 5 miles north of where we started from, you know. Oh. Well, the full story of how we didn't die, how we got back to civilization, is coming out in my book, which is coming out in September, Crocodiles and Ice. But the point of the story is, you know, this is the last talk, I think, of this session, and the idea is don't listen to bad advice. But to say don't listen to bad advice is a little bit like saying don't do something stupid. It doesn't really help. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody who came out. Thanks to our sponsors, The Trail, Find, Wilma, The Top Hat, Bookstore at the University of Montana, and thanks to all of our storytellers, Rachel Dierken, Sean Hawkings, Angela Miller, Steve Gonzales, Jeff Ducklow, Ethan Sky, who had to leave, Broch, Gnose, Melissa Lynn, and John Turk. Thank you so much. Thank you all.